Welcome to my Hebrew channel, Miel Hebraica, Hebrew honey. And today I'm looking at the morphology of some of the verbs. This is in Ruth 1, verses 5 and 6. This is the very first time in the book that we're going to be looking at what are called perfect verbs, past tense. Well, yeah, they're in the past tense. They happen to be in the past tense in this particular section. This isn't always the case. And I much prefer to speak about these verbs in a structural manner. In other words, these are suffix verbs. In other words, the person that defines the verb, the definition comes at the end of the verb. So prefix forms incidentally have prefixes and suffixes. Suffix forms only have the suffix, and they don't have nothing on the front. Often when you do have a narration, you'll start out with a prefix form, because that really does define who's doing what, and then after that, once you establish that, then you go on to the suffix form, and quite often then there'll also be a separate subject to indicate who's doing the action of that particular verb. So into some interesting stuff, and then we'll get to, at the end, we'll get to some of the most frustrating structural things you'll ever see in Hebrew. So if you want something that's very involved, then stick towards the end of the video. You're going to see something very a little bit far out. So, and then they died. That is, both of them, Mahlon, Chilion. And so the woman was left without her two sons and her husband. And Kesher Shanaim, they were there about 10 years. Yamutu gam Shenechem Ma'alon Bekilion Veteshaer Haisha Mishene Yeladecha Umeisha. And this next verse is, we're going to look at the next one. Yakam he Kalotecha. We're going to look at that in the next slide. Very interesting variation here of the U sound right here. We have va, ya, mutu, and the U sound here is given via kibbutz. Kibbutz, you don't see that a whole lot. It isn't one of the most common vowels. And in the printed version that we have, and I don't really know when and where this little change came through in here, there's no kibbutz, but certainly the U sound is put in here via surik. So you got a surik right in the middle of it. Ya motu. A little bit stronger saying it this way. This one required just the work of the kibbutz to give you the U sound. So, but the words mean the same. There's no change really in what the meaning of the word is there. Often little details like that going from version to version. The scribe can change things up or down a little bit. So, Vayamotu gam Shenehem, the two of them, and these them are the names mentioned here: Ma'alon, Chilion, the sickly one, the one with very smooth skin, and the Chilion, the one who's worn out, either depressed, emotionally, physically, both, because he eventually died. So it says right here, both of them died. Ma'alon Chilion. Teshair, and then there were left over. Haisha, Mishane, and then this is a driving preposition, from the two of her sons and from her husband. Okay, so the me, here, this is a hirik with a mem, is a mem hirik, and here's a mem sere. But both of these mems are prepositions, from the two of her sons and from her husband. Now, there's something very interesting here, one on top of the other, maybe the scribe did it this way on purpose. Incidentally, when you get to the end right here, the scribe kind of measured it out and figured out there really wasn't enough room for this me'isha. There really wasn't enough room for it in there. And so he put these things are just simply the marks to occupy the space. You don't really want open spaces like this. You're going to think it's paragraph change out, but no, they have to fill it in. And so this is all sort of the start of a vowel or mem, probably a mem right here. But then he didn't finish it. There's no vowel pointing on or anything like that. So it really doesn't have any value at all in terms of what it's doing there. Just simply giving you a little fill in the space sort of thing. And then the real word comes here. Me isha. Both of these words are very similar. They actually sound quite a bit the same too. Ha isha, me isha. Okay, ha isha. So this is a ish, of course, is man, husband. Husband. No, this is the woman. Sorry, this is the husband. This is the woman. Ha isha. So this is the feminine of ish. Okay, we'll start with ish right here. Aleph yod shin. Okay, Aleph yod shin. That's the root right in the middle here. So that's husband. That's man. Okay, ish. That's the male, masculine singular noun right here. Okay, ish. And as we said, this is a derivative mem, or mem that from taken away from. So mishane and me isha, and then from her husband. Okay, and then the hey at the end here with a mapik in it. That is a suffix pronoun of her. So right here, her right here, to her. Okay, so you got her. So this hey is her husband. And this hey is her sons. Her ha. They don't use them up here. They're just using the comments. This comments and this comments are doing basically the same thing. Ha. So isha. Okay, me isha, from husband of her, and then. So this is husband of her. This is, it's got like, the root would be Aleph Yod Shin. Then the me is the preposition. The u would be the conjunction. And the hey is the pronoun suffix pronoun of her. Possessive right here. And so, yeah, there's a lot of agglutination making up this particular word. But then brings us back to this one. This is Haisha. The hey at the front is the article. And then ish was, of course, person. And then isha, that's a woman. Okay, so, and then the woman, so the woman. So that hey at the end is a feminine ending of isha. So isha. You notice that when you have just the masculine singular form, you'll have a yod in the middle, whereas in the feminine form, that yod has dropped down, and the sound is represented then by the hirik. So isha, and then me isha. Okay. So there it is. The difference between this one and this one, as you can tell from the little mistake I made at the start, they're very easy to confuse. So just keep your eyes open here. And it's very interesting. Why would the author do this? Well, it's simply a way of comparing that element and this element. And sometimes I believe that the book of Ruth was written so that somebody could teach Hebrew grammar from it. And this is one of the little details the teacher would be explaining to the students. So, Ayamut, so you got Surik here, Gam, Shenahem, Mahlon and Chilion, Veteshair, Aisha, Meshane, Yalada, Me Esa. Like I said, there's a mapik here. They could have used the mapik here, didn't. They just left it the way it was. And but it really is no difference in terms of what this hey is doing. This one is also the same kind of third person suffix pronoun, the boys of her, and this one's the man of her. So same, the function of this hey and the function of this hey are identical in terms of who we're talking about. We're talking about her, So Betakom, okay, he, kelatcha. Again, we got the same kind of hey comments here as we saw at the end of the other passage. Yeah, in fact, right here. So here you got isha, meisha, of her, and then these are then the daughters-in-law of her. Okay, same thing over here. Betakom, he, her, she. Kalatecha, Beteshav, Mishde, Moab, Ki, okay, and then little sort of fillers marks right here. Ki, Shama, okay, Shama, and the Shama is to hear, listen, okay, Shin Mem Ayin. This one has hey then at the end, nothing on the front, okay? There's no prefix on this noun, but there is certainly a suffix on the end. So this is a suffix form, and like I said, grammars are going to call this thing a perfect. I would much prefer just calling it a suffix form, and the timing, rather than calling it right out front a perfect, the timing of it, or the tensing of it, is based on the context. And we're still in the middle of narration here, so everything's in the past tense at this point. We haven't run into a dialogue yet. We haven't run into direct discourse yet. And so this simply is a nice little story of what things that happened at that time. So all of it is in the past. Okay, Shama, and she had heard. Bishdei, and incidentally, if you're kind of wondering, we're about 4 or 5 verses into the chapter, and this is the very first time we do see a suffix form, and you go, oh, now why would they bother with suffix form at this point? You go, okay, when this kind of thing happens, it's an important step in the process. Something important is going to start to happen. So, Shema. So she heard Bishdei in the fields. And incidentally, up to now, all of the Shtei, I guess we'll have to see ahead of us. All of these have been construct forms, plural construct forms. And here, all of a sudden, you just have a single form here, Bishdei. This is just an absolute root, and so what's happened is up to now the story's been, okay, all the fields of Moab, in other words, all over the place there, and all of a sudden, boom, here it's settled down to the one spot where she is. Okay, so that's the singular right here. Just very simple, right here in this field, this spot. Okay, Bishdei, Moab, Ki, because Pagad, okay, visited Yehovah. Okay, so here this is the verb right here. That's perfect form. Same thing here. Now here we do have the out and out full just the simple root. Look it up in the dictionary. Look this one up. Where are we here? Yeah, Pagad. Look this one up in the dictionary, Blue Letter Bible, whatever electronic version you want. That's what you'll find. The third masculine singular form is the one that's used to define or used to list, because it is, like I say here, it is the very simplest form of a 3-root verb, of a 3-letter root, a tri-letter root. It's going to be the simplest one. Nothing on the front, nothing on the back, just simply the basic elements of the root. So pa, God, okay, and just remember it's also comets, pata. It's almost always this sequence of verbing, of vowels, pagad, to visit. Visit means, and I always say the visit of Jehovah is never a social visit. It's always a visit with some purpose to it. God's going to do something for you or with you. Can be good. Visit his people with like food over here. Can be bad. Visit with punishment. But incidentally, the visit of Jehovah always comes with something. Something's going to happen. Okay, Jehovah visits, and like you'll hear, visits the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, second and third generation, and so forth. That's the same thing. Pagad. Okay, Pagad Yehovah. Et amo, his people. Is people. Latet. Okay, now we're going to get into this one in a big way, because this one is a very interesting verbal. It's a verb with the lamed here of a preposition of purpose in front of an infinitive. Okay, latet, to give, or to bring, to give, to give. Lachem, lachem, to them, lachem, lachem, lachem. Okay. Now take a look. They basically look identical from just the first look at it, the first view of it. There are a couple of differences. The first one is lachem. This is lamed hey mem, and this is lamed chet mem. So this one will be to them. So this is a preposition in front of a personal pronoun, to them. Okay. And this one actually, the lamed here is isn't the pronoun. It is part of the root, And this is actually the second part of Bethlehem. Okay? Bethlehem. And lechem here is bread. Okay? Bread, food. Bread represents all classes of food here, of course. So lechem. So the difference, first difference, you're going to pick up right away. And if you're running a consonantal text, this is the only thing you would see is chet and hey. So to them, bread. The other difference in accenting, and that's a little bit more, how you say it, probably a little harder to spot, but it's still there. In Hebrew, now Hebrew texts and textbooks and so are going to try to teach you. They try to teach the whole thing of tonic, pretonic, antipretonic. In other words, where the accenting falls, be it at the end, the front of the end, or the before even that. Okay, so you got boom, boom, boom. You can with the words you're using, you can set it up where how far up into the letter you go or into the word you go with the accenting. Accenting in Hebrew is generally the end. Okay, Miel, Ra. If you go all the way through here, you'll find the accents towards the end. Okay. Here's Mishdei, there's the accent right here. Moab, right here's the accent, the Adna. Shama, okay. Mishdei, here's the accent. Moab again, accent over here. Pagad, here's the accenting over here. Yovam, it's Mo, Latet. So, okay. So, Milra is the norm, okay, that's towards the end, okay, that's towards the bottom. Hebrew, this is the front of the letter, this is the back of the letter. This is the top of the letter, that's the bottom of the letter. So the front of the letters to the right, the bottom of the letters to the left. Almost all accenting in Hebrew, the major part of accenting in Hebrew is towards the bottom of the word. Sometimes, however, you have Miel, it goes on up. So el, al, this word here is based on al, going up. Sometimes the accent takes a hike up the hill. So, and this is what's happened here. You got lachem, so that's Miel, Ra, and lachem, and here the accenting went upwards to the first. Now, in the way the textbooks would explain it is, this would be tonic, and this one would be pretonic. Okay, but I just simply say it's moving that way, or it's moving this way, or it'll tend to sit this way. Okay, here. And then sometimes it moves that way. Sometimes it moves up the hill. So it's quite a bit more simple system for defining where the accenting is, and so I much prefer it. Just and as you see, right, well, in both of these cases you have segol, but segols generally push accenting upwards. We call them segolates, have the accenting pushing upwards into the milel. So, like I said, this latet is a very complex scenario here, and I picked it out. Sometimes I kind of dread getting into this because it is it's something that, but there is a I'm gonna, you'll have the textbook way of explaining it. I'm gonna textbook explain it, and then I'm gonna say, hey, let's look at it in a much more simplified system. Okay, we'll get to the simplified system. I love simplified explanations of what's happening in the passage. So here's latet. This is the verb we're looking at. In order to give. Okay, this is a lamed. It's a preposition with the purpose of giving. To give. To give is then latet is an infinitive. Okay, so I have it here in the letters that we use in our electronic versions here. Latet. Okay, same thing as this one. Here you have a rafe. I don't bother with the rafe here. So latet. In fact, nobody else does. And accenting here was Miel, Ra. I'm not going to bother trying to decipher these accenting, but so when you have a root, okay, and if you're going to look it up in Blue Letter Bible, and you're going to find the root definition of the dictionary of this particular word, it's natan, okay? He gives, okay? Natan, he gives. And here it's got everything. It's got the root tau, it's got the nun on the front, it's got the nun on the back. So nun, nun. And as we're going to be seeing, the nun is very easy to drop away. The nun goes on vacation very quickly. So this is la tête so what you have is when you have the root, the tau, if the front nun drops off, it's a apheresis. If the last nun drops out, it would be apocope. If the tau would drop out, it would be syncope, and you wouldn't have anything left after that. I mean, in that time you can't have a syncope because then you wouldn't have anything. So, okay, that's getting a little bit ridiculous. Okay, so apheresis is the front one, apocope is the back one. So here, the front nun dropped out and was replaced by the lamed, and the back nun was dropped out and was replaced by this tau, which established then the infinitive form. Okay, so you have this tau setting up an infinitive, taking the place of the nun that was there. Nun suffers apocope, and this lamed sitting in the front, taking the place of the nun, and so there's a apheresis of the nun, and the lamed takes its place and does the work of the preposition. So that's how that one comes together. Natan, like I said, is the root. He gave, he put, he gave. And then we get down to the next one. This one's actually very similar to that one, tet. And it does appear by itself. I just ran through the Bible text, picking these out here and there. And tet, this one's to give. And so you have apheresis, the front nun has disappeared, but in this case, no lamed was put in its place. Just simply an infinitive that's standing by itself, and then the tau then here does make the infinitive. So the tau has replaced the second nun has is gone, and in its place you have this tau taking the place of that nun, making the infinitive. So now what you have here, same thing as tito, to give him. And so you have the infinitive, and then you have vav in the end as a suffix pronoun to give to him. 10 here, I didn't indicate, the first nun right here, this one, has gone. So we have apheresis here, okay? And then nun, you do have this nun, this is imperative, okay, 10. If I had my way, I'd just teach all my students, learn your vocabulary via the imperative forms, because the imperative forms are going to be often the very shortest, the very simplest version of any verb. So give, okay, give it up, give, 10, okay. Has apheresis, doesn't have apocope. I mean, just the nun's still there. Getting into prefix forms, you have yet vayaten. This is then he gave. This is actually, I went into Genesis, and then the Lord placed the sun, the moon, stars, and so on. This is it here. Vayaten. So what you have is, you got the tau, which is the root. You still have the second nun, so there's no apocope, but you do have apheresis on this nun. It's gone. In its place, you have the yod. You have a conjunction as well. And over here, this is when Eve gives the fruit to the man. So this is the masculine, God gives, and this one's Eve gives to the man, the forbidden fruit. So T10. So same thing again. Second one is still there, so there's no apocope, but there is apheresis of the nun that you would visualize in here. This one is natati. So this is first person singular, I give. And what we have here is the nun is in place for the front part, so the nun has not suffered apheresis here, but has suffered apocope. And in its place we have tau yod, the first person singular suffix form of I give. This is also I give, but this is the prefixed form of it. Okay, the suffix form, prefix form. And here, the nun that was supposed to be sitting here has been replaced by the aleph, and the aleph is first person singular then in a prefix form. Again, this one would be called the imperfect. So, eten, okay, I give. Yeten, this is also to give, he gives. It's basically that one without the vav. So, yeten, to give. He gave, he gives. No 10. This one has everything, like that one here. Natan, nun, tau, nun. Nun, tau, nun, just the vowel pointing would be of the participle oe. Okay, the participle. The participles do carry both front and back. I haven't looked up all the versions of the participles. I think if you got a lot of agglutination on this one, at least the second part would probably suffer pocope. So there's explanation. Fetuses and pocope, this is one letter. I would say if you're going to pick a letter that's kind of maxed out on how fetuses and pocope operate, this would be it. This is as detailed as you can get in terms of what happens to a basic root. If I would sit Samuel in front of me and say, Samuel, oh, hey, look, there's a fetuses here, there's a pocope there, fetuses here, pocope. He'd stare me in the face and he'd go, oh, that's idiocy. That doesn't work. I'm very sure that ancient times they did very little of this kind of what I'm doing for you right now. They would take the simple root right here, the tau, the tau right here. They take the tau, and then when they want something, they add on to the base root. Okay, you want something here. Okay, you want something here, add the lamed to show the preposition, add the tau to show the infinitive. Want this one? Okay, that's third person singular, masculine, normal form. This one again, same thing. And then so you start with the base root, start with just one letter here, just one letter. Tau and tet are about the only letters in the Hebrew alphabet that can do this. Other ones, you won't find any other roots that go right down to a single letter for its very, very base root. Everything else is the very base root would be just two letters. In fact, most of the base roots, I know dictionaries try to operate with 3 letters in the base root, but most of them do go all the way down to 2. So, but anyway, this is just 1. And so every time you want anything, just add something to it, just add something to it, add something to it. And each element that's added to it does its job. So this is then the root, and then everything that gets added here, this yod, this vav, this nun here, and all of these things, all of these have what I call a syntactic function. They're doing something for you. They've got some work to do, and they're defining things. They're telling you, okay, this is what's going to be, this is what's going to be, this is what's going to be, and so things can. In fact, I didn't pick out there's ones that run to 8 or 10 letters because you can add on lots of other things even on top of this. So, but each case is just simply agglutination. It's not. And you don't have to talk. You don't really have to learn about fetuses or pocope if you're willing to just learn your vocabulary based on its base root. If you got its base root, then you aren't losing anything because you aren't starting with anything anyway. So just start with the very simplest and work out from there to build up the structure of your verbs. So I found it very frustrating to teach this kind of thing to my students. It's something that's quite difficult to grasp. So I've looked for, well, I've asked myself, would Samuel or Abraham or so do all of this? No, they probably wouldn't. They didn't. They just simply start with a very simple root and then add it on to get to do what they wanted to do. Things just simply got agglutinated. So just start with a simple root, just agglutinate on the stuff you want to do with making your verb. So that's hopefully this hasn't become too much of a rant about this kind of thing. But most certainly in ancient times there were much simpler ways of doing things, and I'm really happy with discovering those simple ways that the original roots were formed in the language. So God's word is something that must be understood. It must be able to be interpreted and looked at. And sometimes, of course, we're going to look at things, and the message can come with just a single letter. Just a single letter can teach you a whole lot. So Jesus said, not a jot or tittle will fall from the word. So yeah, even the very smallest parts of the Word of God can teach us something. So may God bless and may God strengthen you in this day. Until the next time.